And then Joe Biden in 2020 used the exact same criteria. He wanted to make sure he picked somebody who wasn't as smart as him, had less talent and charisma, and wouldn't outshine him. And he picked Kamala Harris. And then in 2024, Governor, I think it's very evident why Kamala Harris picked you. The talent pool, Mr. Chairman.
Just a reminder, if Kamala Harris won the 2024 election, that man right there, Tim Walz, the guy who signed legislation in Minnesota allowing tampons to go in the boys' bathroom in elementary schools, would be vice president tonight. Think about that. Walz testified today before the Oversight Committee on Capitol Hill about the alleged $9 billion Somali fraud scandal in his state. The accusation is simple. It's that Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison knowingly looked the other way while billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, were funneled illegally to Somali immigrants in return for voting for Democrats, thus keeping Democrats in power and keeping people like Tim Walz in power. James Comer is the chairman of the Oversight Committee. He led that hearing today. Mr. Chairman, great to have you back on. Do you think after what you witnessed today that Tim Walz knew this fraud was happening and looked the other way to stay in power?
Absolutely. We proved that in our months-long investigation, and here's how we proved it. We talked to 30 Minnesota state employees. We brought 9 of them in for transcribed interviews. They said under oath that they warned Tim Walz and Keith Ellison repeatedly about the fraud, and both Governor Walz and Attorney Ellison told them time and time again to not worry about it and to stand down.
Are you going to recommend charges to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General?
We have passed our findings and our detailed report over to the Attorney General. Now, the Attorney General has said many times on, I believe even on your show, she said on several networks, that she's on the ground in Minnesota now with her team, and they're trying to prosecute specific fraudsters. So this is a broad case. Our role on the Oversight Committee was to determine whether or not Walz and Ellison knew about the fraud. We did that today. They did know about the fraud, and the evidence is in the form of the interviews from the Minnesota whistleblowers.
Take a look at this exchange today between Tim Walz and Nancy Mace.
So we're going to do some Minnesota math with you today, okay? Are you ready? How much money was spent on 2017 for autism in Minnesota? How much?
I don't know. I wasn't the governor.
Okay. Did you not just say that you prepared for this hearing today? $1 million, okay? A quick Google search or using your AI could tell you $1 million was spent. How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2024?
I don't have the number in front of me.
Were you governor in 2024?
I was.
And you still said you prepared for this hearing today. It's unbelievable. $343 million was spent in 2024.
$343 million. Are there really that many autistic kids suddenly in the state of Minnesota, or is that fraud?
That is fraud, and that is typical of what you're seeing in Democrat-run states with Medicaid. There's Medicaid fraud. They want to say, oh, we're increasing funding for autism. We're increasing funding for addiction and recovery services. We're increasing funding for mental health. And the more money the Democrats put out there, the more fraudsters magically appear with fake companies and fake recipients. And they continue to bilk the taxpayers. And that's what's happened in Minnesota. Yeah. We've proven that today. Hopefully we can now go to other states and prove this. Thank goodness the Trump administration has cut off federal funding in Minnesota until they get their act together.
And the question is, does this rise to the level of criminality? Does Walz end up in handcuffs? One more soundbite, then I want to move on. This is Pat Fallon, Tim Walz again today. Take a look.
Governor, there's been billions stolen over 7+ years right under your nose, and really there's only 2 explanations. It's either you were in on it or you weren't smart enough to see it. It's either criminal negligence or wild incompetence. And the only way this kind of fraud can reach this scale is if there's people in power that are colluding and collaborating and willfully blinding themselves to the realities around them.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, your committee thinks this was criminal negligence and not wild incompetence, which seems absurd on the face anyway.
And we're basing that on the interviews conducted with the career Minnesota state employees, just about all of whom were registered Democrats. These are good state employees that did the right thing. They blew the whistle, and they did it multiple times over multiple years. And Tim Walz never did anything about it. And the employees felt like they were retaliated against for having the audacity to raise the flag that this money was being wasted.
It's just unbelievable. A couple million votes go the other direction. Tim Walz is vice president right now.
Yep.
Your committee voted today to subpoena Attorney General Pam Bondi for testimony on the Epstein files. Do you think she's covering something up?
I don't think she's covering something up. I just think this is the worst rollout in the history of America. I've been critical of how the Attorney General has handled this. And I'll be honest, you're seeing this today. Republicans in Congress are frustrated. We want to get the truth to the American people.
Yeah.
We want to hold people accountable in the Epstein crimes. And, you know, it's a challenge. But again, to defend the Attorney General, there are a lot of ongoing lawsuits. There are a lot of class action lawsuits. There are a lot of settlements that have already been made with many of these victims. So and then the big thing that people are just now starting to understand, some of the victims were also victimizers. So their names have been redacted because they were at first victims of Epstein, but then they kind of became victimizers and started recruiting other girls.
Right. And it comes down to this notion that maybe Pam Bondi has not released everything that she is legally obligated to release. You also indicated via tweet yesterday that you are inviting Bill Gates to a transcribed interview. Do you think he might have done something criminal? Did he break the law, possibly?
There's no evidence that he broke the law, but we do know he spent a lot of time with Epstein.
Yeah.
And we're trying to bring in every rich, powerful person that spent a lot of time with Jeffrey Epstein to figure out how he was able to curry favor with the rich and famous, and to see if they know of anything that would help us in our investigation.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.